The biggest political scandal in American history, maybe. Lawlessness in Portland and why it matters, and the greatest day in American history. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows had this to say.
I think the American people expect indictments. I know I expect indictments based on the evidence I've seen. Lindsey Graham did a good job in getting that out. We know that they not only knew that there wasn't a case, but they continue to investigate and spy, and yes, I use the word spy, on Trump campaign officials, and actually even doing things when this president was sworn in and after that, and doing it in an inappropriate manner. You're going to see a couple of other documents come out in the coming days that will suggest that not only was the campaign spied on, but the FBI did not act appropriately as they were investigating. It's all starting to come unravel, and I tell you, it's time that people go to jail and people are indicted. It is stunning, and here's the interesting thing is not only that it wasn't true, the problem is they knew it wasn't true. And when you know something is not true and you continue the investigation, that's collusion. That's the kind of thing that we must stop, and that's where we need to hold people accountable.
Someone better go to jail. I hope all that stuff that I just opened the show with, I hope all of it's true. And I'll tell you why I think it's so important. And I'm not just talking about something I want personally. Yes, I take this very, very seriously. I take what happened very seriously. We'll recap that in a second. But for the sake of the future of the United States of America, somebody had better go to jail. Have you ever heard of the Montana Vigilantes? It's a famous story from the 1860s where Montana wasn't a state yet, it was just a territory. And they had all these robberies popping up along the road, people getting robbed of all their goods, all your valuables, all their gold dust, because it was a big mining place. And eventually the sheriff himself, his name was Henry Plummer, he started leading one of these gangs, robbing everybody, not making that up. Sheriff by day, throw on a mask at night with a couple of your hoodlum friends, go out and rob people. Henry Plummer ended up swinging from a rope, from a tree, at the hands of a lynch mob. They were the Montana Vigilantes. They ended up murdering, frankly, 50 people, probably at least, that we know of. That's not an extreme example in the history of the world. That's the rule. Societies, all of society, every nation in the history of the world seeks out justice. It's the nature of man. It's your nature, it's my nature. You know it. You know it when something pops up in your head and you think, that's not fair. That is not fair. Someone better do something about that. It's built into you. It's how God made us. You have a desire for justice. So do I. You want to see it done. And in the history of the world, I gave you one of about 1 million examples of very, very, very extreme, very dangerous things happening when justice is not served. When people feel like the justice system is against them or feel like everything is against them, they do dangerous, desperate, immoral, stupid things. It is the nature of man. And my concern for all the bluster, and I'm nothing against Mark Meadows. I hope he meant every word of that. He probably does. I don't know the man. My concern is what we're hearing now from Mark Meadows, what we've heard all the time from people like Senator Lindsey Graham, who's been the worst at this. What I'm worried is it's a lot of smoke, it's a lot of bark, and there's not really going to be any bite. Already, and you're going to have to forgive me, what's taking so long? How is it possibly taking so long? And I know what you might be thinking. Well, Jesse, what's the rush? How could we rush it? People, have you looked at the calendar? Do you know what's coming in November? Do you know what happens the day after the election in November if Joe Biden wins and there are no indictments handed down on this yet? This investigation disappears like that. That's how Democrats handle their business. They wouldn't even dream of looking into impropriety, especially of somebody of their own party. Unless this thing wraps up and charges are leveled quickly, this entire thing goes away. And I am tired of the Lindsey Grahams of the world telling me all the subpoenas, all the things they're going to do, and never do it. Never do it. Because what it tells me is they're not taking seriously what's happening in the United States of America. And this goes way beyond what Barack Obama did. And just to recap that, Barack Obama, the President of the United States of America, he gets information, he chooses not to act on the information or backs the FBI. And what's that information? That information is this, that the FBI is knowingly using bad info to gain a warrant, a FISA warrant, to spy on not only an American citizen, the political opponent of the president. Barack Obama either knows about it or flat out directs that it happens. We know all this by now. This is a huge deal. This is the President of the United States of America using the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as his own campaign tool? That is Banana Republic stuff. That's insane. And frankly, not literally, heads need to be lopped off for that. That is that big of a deal. And I think Washington, and frankly, while I like the man and I've been impressed by what I've heard so far, frankly, I lump BARR in with him too until I see otherwise. I think all of Washington, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, I think they all think, well, man, this is a big deal, but we can't actually bust anyone for that. We don't do that here. We still have to go to parties with these people. What if we just talk about it a lot? What if we just yell about it a lot and sound tough? They don't realize what's happening in this country. And what's happening is the American people look at that and they look at the lawlessness on the street and they look at the unequal ways. Unequal? Unequal. I went to community college. I don't know. The ways that aren't equal, that the justice system is being applied to the American people and the American citizen. The average normal American citizen is starting to think this, and this is the most dangerous thought in the world for a future of the nation. They're starting to think, maybe our justice system doesn't matter at all. Maybe there's injustice out there that people have no intention of fixing, and I want somebody to fix it. And the reason that situation is so dangerous is because that's how nations tear themselves down. That's how nations tear themselves apart. As soon as people lose faith in the institutions of the nation's already done, even if it doesn't know it yet. If the average American looks at their local district attorney, police department, and thinks to themselves, corrupt. If they look at the Justice Department on a federal level, the federal police department, the FBI, and think to themselves, there we go again, another political party, America's already done and we don't even know it. And I'm worried these DC types don't know it. I'm worried they think this is just yet another in the long list of examples where we just have to talk tough. It's election season after all, right? November's coming right around the corner. Let's just throw the rubes a bone. Sound like I'm really going to step in there like the law this time and do something. And then once the election's over, we can finally be done with that nonsense and just go back to how we do everything in Washington, D.C. Those days are gone, and they're gone for good. They are. The American people are separating quickly between the lawless and the lawful. And once the people who seek justice, once the people who want justice feel as if the system itself can no longer give it to them, well, then they find other ways to get it. And that's not good for anybody. All of that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. Now, you know what else should make you uncomfortable? Speaking of lawlessness, the Federal Bureau of Investigation doesn't just get concerned about things over nothing, right? The FBI says something is a big, big problem. That's because something is a big, big, big problem, and home title theft is sweeping this country, and it's getting people evicted from their homes, people who've never done anything wrong. Your home title, it exists online. Thieves can get it easily. If they get their hands on your title, you're already done. They'll get your signature on it. It's nothing for them to do so. Take out a loan against it. You are obligated to pay it back. Almost undoubtedly happens all the time. People get late notices in the mail for the loan they didn't take. They assume it's junk mail. They throw it in the trash. And the next notice you do pay attention to is a big fat eviction notice. They will take your home from you. They will. Go to HometitleLock.com. Put in your address, see if you're already a victim. While you're there, use the promo code Jesse. Get yourself 30 free days of protection. HometitleLock.com. We'll be back. Well, I realized that was a heavy opening about lawlessness and the craziness of society, but understand, I'm coming from a place of wanting America to do well, of wanting America to be a peaceful, just nation. And, well, we're not there right now. And not only are we not there, we're going this way. And there's no greater example right now than what's happening in American cities. When you see the absolute lawlessness sanctioned by the mayors of so many of these American cities, the same cities where if you happen to open your barber shop in the era of coronavirus, you're treated as if you're some sort of pedophile. That's happening right now in America, and it's leading Americans to believe, well, nobody works for me, or the justice system really only matters if I'm in the right place at the right time. Well, if I'm a conservative, I better be in rural red America. I'll probably be okay. Well, shoot, if I'm in a big city run by leftists, I better be a leftist or I'm not going to be okay. That's a problem. When people feel like justice is not applied evenly, it's a problem. In Portland, that is the best example in the world right now. Let me set this up before I go to the Portland mayor. Some videos emerged online of U.S. personnel, federal law enforcement personnel, all camoed out, look like commandos, helmets on and everything, rolling up to people on the street, grabbing them, the little Antifa guys, and chucking them in the back of an unmarked van and driving off. Turns out the guy was questioned, released later on. Oh, well. Well, people saw that and they freaked out. And I have to be honest with you about something, and I need you to hear me out, so just pay attention for a minute. I didn't love it either, kind of. That's part of me. The other part of me loved it and wanted a lot more of it. Allow me to explain. I don't love people in the federal government grabbing anybody, even scumbag dirtballs like Antifa, grabbing them without really giving anybody a heads up and taking off with them. And I don't love it, not because I care about Antifa, it's because I care about me. I don't want them stopping the next time a leftist controls the government and chucking me in the back of a van. If they do, it better be spacious, but that's another story entirely. I don't want that. I don't want government to have that power. That's that part of me. The other part of me says, what else are we going to do to root out the communists in this country? And I'm not going to hold back and go, well, they're not really communists. They're just kind of socialists who would... Stop. The leftism movement always takes the same route in whatever country it sprouts up. Ours is now pretty firmly entrenched. We don't have to go over all that again. Hollywood, entrenched. The education system, my word, very entrenched. Over 90% of the federal employees. The media. One political party, absolutely, and about half of the other one. It's here. It's entrenched. It has deep roots. And the problem is when something like that has very deep roots, well, it gets more and more painful to get rid of it, doesn't it? And those roots are growing deeper by the day. Do I love the thought of federal agents grabbing people and chucking them in the back of vans? Part of me, no. Part of me thinks maybe they should have just carted him right off to prison. I know, that's a bit extremist. I'm not trying to be extremist on the show, but I am trying to get the point across. We are facing a real problem. The longer we let this problem fester, the more extreme the solution is going to be. How extreme do you want that solution to be? Portland's mayor, this idiot, Ted Wheeler, I think his name is, he had this to say about the federal agents.
Well, the president has a complete misunderstanding of cause and effect. What's happening here is we have dozens, if not hundreds, of federal troops descending upon our city. And what they're doing is they are sharply escalating the situation. Their presence here is actually leading to more violence and more vandalism, and it's not helping the situation at all. They're not wanted here. We haven't asked them here. In fact, we want them to leave.
Well, that's an interesting situation, isn't it? It shows perfectly the contrast we have right now in America. Here we have the hardcore leftist leader of a city in America. And let's talk about this for a moment. I realize Portland isn't on everybody's mind most of the time. Have you ever been to Portland? I was in Portland before it lost its mind. It's gorgeous, or it was. Now, what does it say about us that we've let a once gorgeous city descend into what it is? Because now it's a wasteland. It's disgusting. The leftists took it over, and they did exactly what leftists do to everything they take over. They destroyed it. They destroyed it. And we have a mayor now, like we do in several cities, including New York, letting these people go. The violence is going to escalate because the federal troops is here. Portland is a big boy city with a big boy police department. All this street violence could disappear like that if Ted Wheeler wanted it to disappear. He doesn't, so it hasn't. So what should the feds do? Now, it should be noted, the feds aren't just cruising around the city of Portland looking for anybody, focusing on people who are close to federal buildings. It's a big deal, right? You want to keep that jurisdiction there. But boy, does that not show the contrast? The leftist cities, the leftist mayors in American cities, they're encouraging this. This isn't violence that's just happening on the poor Portland mayor's watch, and he's doing what he can. He could stop this in the next hour. In the next hour, he has the manpower and resources to stop this, but he doesn't want to. Now, what kind of a sick mentality is it that you're in charge of a major American city being torn apart and you don't want to stop it? What kind of mentality is that? That's the mentality you and I are going to have to start getting used to dealing with. That is the mentality of the modern American left. They hate this place. They hate themselves. They hate this place. They see the destruction of it as, kind of what we have coming. They do. I know that makes you uncomfortable. I don't love saying it either. But we must stop sitting here acting as if the leftists are just, they just have a different point of view. No. That's a child's way to think. These people hate this place. Donald Trump, he had a tweet that said this. He's right. He said, Portland has lost control and we're helping, to put it mildly. He also said, the radical left is trying to destroy our cities. Not going to happen. That's the problem. It is. It is going to happen. It is happening. And he frankly does not have much jurisdiction to do anything about it. You can't just send federal troops into any city you want, any part of any city you want. You can put them up around the federal monuments, federal buildings, and they can guard that. But other than that, what choice do we have right now? Here are your two choices. You can let these leftists purposely destroy iconic American cities like New York City, or you can violate every law there is, including the Constitution of the United States of America, and send in federal troops, federal agents to stop it. See what a pickle we're in? Which one of those horrible solutions would you prefer? We can't have New York City burning down on the world stage, right? I mean, there are greater things at stake. The world is watching as our greatest city, if not the greatest city in the world, goes down the toilet. They're watching. It matters. but we also can't empower this president, this government, to send in the troops whenever they want, because then the next one does. And maybe the next one does when he feels like your Tea Party's getting a little too loud. And you know I'm right. Mark Meadows had this to say.
He's working very closely with Attorney General Barr. I can tell you that this week what we're looking at is not only looking at what a lot of people have called the executive order on statues, which he did that, but that's really, the statues are one thing, but it's really about keeping our communities safe. And the president's committed to do that. Some of the unrest that we saw even in the last month or so, but particularly last night and in the week leading up to it in Portland, it's just not acceptable when you look at communities not being safe and not upholding the rule of law. So Attorney General Barr is weighing in on that with Secretary Wolf, and you'll see something rolled out this week as we start to go in and make sure that the communities, whether it's Chicago or Portland or Milwaukee or someplace across the heartland of the country, we need to make sure that our communities are safe.
Kind of. The truth is, it shows where we are as a country. The truth is, the mayors of those cities are responsible for that, and they don't want to anymore. Man, I can't believe we're there. That's tough to say, right? That's tough to acknowledge, but that's where we are. Maybe in the end, this is all a good thing, because in the end, it'll convince finally you and I what we're actually facing here. We're facing people who hate us and want to bring us down. All right. Well, you watch all this nonsense and it can lead to a little bit of sleepless nights, right? Makes that insomnia you struggle with even worse. You know you don't have to do that anymore. Ebb Sleep is so confident in their product, and they should be because it works. I have one. Ebb Sleep is so confident in their product, they let you try it risk-free for 60 nights. 60 nights you can try the thing. It's not pills. It's none of that garbage. You put it on your head. It provides precise, continuous cooling to your forehead, calming those racing thoughts down, puts you to sleep, and keeps you that way. Go to tryebb.com/Jesse. That's tryebb.com/Jesse. Use the promo code Jesse. Get $25 off. We'll be back. Joining me now is radio host, political commentator, and former law enforcement officer Brandon Tatum. Brandon, I look at Portland, and I'm not sure what to even make of something like this. How does one exist as a law enforcement officer in an environment like that? What does that say about the country itself when we have a major American city that courts an environment like that?
Yeah, I mean, in America, we're in a state of despair as far as it is concerned to the way we treat law enforcement and to be a law enforcement officer. It is asinine to me that police have been completely ripped of their strength, of their authority, of their manhood, per se, because they cannot even enforce laws against tyranny. These people are complete terrorists. Burning down precincts and vandalizing areas and taking over entire jurisdictions are complete anarchy. And I don't understand how the officials in the city and even some of the higher ranking government officials aren't stepping in and saying, hey, man, enough is enough.
Maybe it's time that you and I just simply accept the fact they hate us, they hate themselves, and they hate America. I mean, is that too radical to say? We're not allowed. What am I supposed to take from that, Brandon? I'm watching, 2 months of anarchy now? Innocent people dying across the country, rampant vandalism. What other impression am I supposed to get besides that?
If you are soft as a marshmallow, then of course you would buy into the lies and just let it slide. But if you have any level of strength and backbone, we got to start standing up and at least talking about these things and bringing them to light. There is nothing productive about what's going on in America as far as these riots are concerned. And this is the delineation point where you can see politicians who actually care about the country, who is calling this BS out, and the ones who hate America, and they're letting it go on, and they're calling them protests. These people are not protesting. And even if they were, what are they protesting about? Police brutality? I haven't seen a black man killed by the police in the last month or so. So I don't want to hear any of the BS. This is a takeover, orchestrated, it's well planned, well funded, and we need to take it to an end.
Who's doing the orchestrating? Because I've heard this a lot, and I refuse to believe it's not at least partially true. Who's paying for this stuff? I mean, we got word about that one CD, I believe it was in Idaho, where law enforcement stopped a bunch of Mercedes vans driving into town full of Antifa guys with bricks and everything else. These scumbags with no job aren't affording a Mercedes van rental. Who's paying? Who's putting up the money?
So the ultra billionaire that people are talking about is George Soros. Now, I don't know specifically, I cannot verify, but based on the things that I've heard, based on his donations to Black Lives Matter in the past, it seems to be the likes of George Soros and other people who have mega money, who are either directly paying for it or funneling it through Black Lives Matter. $300 million or something that they've raised already. Well, where do you think that money is coming from? It's not grassroots. It's a bunch of big-time millionaires, billionaires who are putting money in, and a couple of low-hanging fruit that are donating to the cause, maybe blindly, that are doing these things. And listen, let me tell you something. I know somebody who has a subscription to the BLM platform, and they are well-funded. They are asking for donations if you're on their mailing list, and they have a script of what you should do, what you should post, when and where to protest, and to, I guess, exemplify your activism. And so to think this is grassroots and people are just popping up all over the country doing this, that's a complete lie.
What percentage of the people at these protests actually care? And how much of this is just people who are bored? I know I see a bunch of suburban kids, nothing to do. I see a bunch of inner city kids, nothing to do. How much of this comes down to boredom? And frankly, we got here because we have 50 million people unemployed.
I would argue that probably 5% of the people out there actually are out there for a good cause. Maybe they're not even rioting. They're out there protesting for something they believe in. They are part of the community. Maybe they've experienced police brutality. Maybe they've experienced racism in this country. But that's probably 5% in my personal opinion. The rest of these people are out here just acting a fool. It's like the kid that you never spanked growing up. They're out here. They don't know who they are. They don't know where they want to be. And they're acting out. And this is what we see. Burning a building has nothing to do with police brutality. Vandalizing Louis Vuitton, looting Louis Vuitton has nothing to do with police brutality. When you're burning and pillaging and killing other people, how does that effectively positively reflect your cause? It doesn't.
How did we get to a parenting crisis in America? Not just the parents who are absentee, the ones who are there and don't do something. Because to hear you bring it up about the spanking, boy, did it just bring me back. My father would have probably literally murdered me had he ever thought that I showed up at one of these things. I think he would have just taken me and just popped my head off.
Yeah, my father would have did the same thing, and he would have did it right in front of the police officers. I remember a long time ago when I was a kid, my dad would tell me, you know, it was a trend that kids would call the police on their parents. My daddy said, look, you call the police on me, they're not gonna get here fast enough. I'm gonna kill you before they get here. So good luck calling the police. So, you know, my dad didn't play it either. But what has happened was that we have diminished the appropriate association with Christ, the appropriate association with faith, which tells you that you should discipline your children. And also, we have gotten so brainwashed into political correctness and the soft nature of cowardice that we believe that we can't even touch our kids if necessary. I whoop my son early in his life. I don't have to spank him right now. I tell him what to do. He does what I say. But if at any point I have to get out of the box and start whooping, that's what I'm going to do, because I'd be darned if my son ever shows up with Antifa or out here protesting and burning stuff. I'd be darned. And you know what? The responsibility is going to be on me, not society. It's going to be on me because I raised him and he has my same last name. I wish other parents would have that level of connectivity and that level of integrity to raise their children the right way.
So what's the disconnect, Brandon? Because I agree. Look, we did the same thing in our house. We whipped them early and whipped them often. I haven't had to touch them in years. My kids are miraculously quite respectful now. So why can't other parents do that? I'm not going to sit here and say other parents hate their kids. I believe parents love their kids. How did we get such a parenting fail in this country?
Because we have an epidemic of kids raising kids. You know, back in the day, you wouldn't have a child at 15 years old, 16 years old. You would be mature. You've had mature training from your parents, and you can adequately raise a child. And then it wasn't all this political correctness and brainwashing in schools. But nowadays, you got people having children before they become adults mentally, not even just age-wise, before they become adults mentally. And then you have the absentee example of fatherless homes. Even when some of the fathers are in the homes, they're not being real fathers. They're being what we call beta males. So when you have a breakdown of the family, people not taking their appropriate position in the family, you have this huge disconnect. And a lot of the parents nowadays would rather take a easier stance by being their child's friend instead of taking a hard stance by spanking them and being a disciplinary when it's appropriate. You know, my son, I love my son. You know, I don't want to see him cry. I don't want to see him upset. I hate to hurt his feelings. He wanted earrings in his ear, and I told him, you're going to have to prove to me that you're mature enough to have those before you get them. Did it make him sad? I don't care. Because at the end of the day, I'm responsible for him being an adult, not making him happy and perpetuating him being a child forever.
Speaking of fathers, I grew up in that era in the 80s where all the 80s rock bands were getting the earrings in there. And I remember I came home and suggested it once to my father, and he told me he'd tear it out of my head if I ever got one. So I never ended up getting one. Brandon Tatum, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Be good. All right. It is time to pay homage to, well, the greatest day in American history. Hang on. Joining me now, national security analyst and guy who consistently seems to get me centered back on things when I have questions, Dave Reboy. Dave, I have this good Jesse, bad Jesse thing going on where everybody saw those federal agents in uniform in Portland grab a guy off the street, chuck him in the back of the van, and wants to live in libertarian utopia. Jesse sees that. And I was actually not great with it because I don't like the federal government having that power. And then the other Jesse looks at it and says, we have a severe commie entrenchment problem in America. And frankly, what they're doing to them is probably the kindest thing we should be doing to them. What's the solution, Dave, to get rid of this scum we have entrenched in our society?
So this is a difficult question. I think I am where you're at right now, which is that exactly how you laid it out. On one hand, you've got the filthy commies running around loose in Portland. On the other hand there's a very real part of me that says, why even send these guys in if they're going to be enemies, if they're going to be treated as enemies by the local government? I mean, it's really interesting that, you and I talk about this stuff, with regards to national divorce, but in a very real sense, Portland is another country. The government there seems fine with the chaos. It seems fine with the the rioting and what have you. The villain in this story, as far as Portland is concerned, is Donald Trump and Bill Barr and Ken Cuccinelli at DHS. So, I mean, it's like if you it's like if we decide we want to clamp down on something going on across the border in Canada or something, and the local government says, no, we have it under control. It's okay. I mean, this is a really new situation that we have, because kind of heretofore in America, local governments really did want to restore order, but they no longer do.
Here's the problem, though, Dave. Portland isn't in Canada. Like New York is not in Canada. It's here. And you're right. It's not something that I can tell, at least in the history of this country we've faced. We have, and now they're pretty open about it, a bunch of people who hate this place. They genuinely hate this place. They hate everything about it. And the people in charge of these places who are leftists hate these places. It's not just the Antifa guys. Bill de Blasio is watching people get murdered by the dozen in his city. He's still taking away the cops. They don't care. So what is the solution that is, I don't want to say painless, because what is painless? I mean, nothing of value. What is the solution that doesn't involve something ugly to root out this leftist entrenchment in America? Is there one, or is all of it ugly and we're all just dancing around the solution?
I think we're all just dancing around the solution in many respects, but here's what I would do, or at least here's what I would prioritize about the situation if I was in the White House or a policymaker. Number one, I would make sure that if you have some kind of a police action that's necessary, or anti-terrorist action, what have you, is you make sure that it is in response to graphic and verifiable violence, because that way you get the people on. That way, people understand what you're doing. You know, you have to have the press reporting on chaos that's going on somewhere, and you know, if the answer is going to be to bring law to that city, you have to. You know, we've got to have evidence of the chaos, because right now the Democrats want very, very badly to present. I mean, they've already gone completely insane in presenting BARR and Trump as Nazis, as stormtroopers invading the country with their secret police force. I mean, this is all what used to be considered way past third rail politics in the United States. And it's just kind of openly being discussed. So in order to get the mass of people around your policies, if you're the president, you need to show that you're in fact restoring order. I do think restoring order in general in the United States is a winner electorally right now, but people have to see it getting really bad before they'll support a crackdown. For example, we went. How long? How many days? 20 days? 15 days of Chaz? You know, people really got it. It turned into a punchline, and then it turned very tragic because you had murders there, you had all kinds of nonsense. But the American people did really see what that was like. Now, I'm worried in Portland and in some other places that they're just not going to see some of the havoc that Antifa and some of the other garbage people are inflicting on the cities. All they'll see is, you know, propaganda footage and screams from the left. I mean, in a very real way, this is, and I say this all the time, but it couldn't be more true. The template for everything is the Israelis and the Palestinians. This is the same thing. You've got, you know, the initial terrorist attack against the Israelis from Palestinians, that very quickly disappears from the news if it's reported at all. And the only thing you get is disproportionate response from the Israelis. And this is the trap that the left is trying to set for Trump right now. So I think he needs to be mindful to try to avoid it in as many ways as he can.
Dave, changing the subject just a little bit, I talked to a realtor over the weekend, a realtor in Montana. And this realtor told me that a normal home, that was just a normal listed home, had 19 bids on it, all of them over asking price. That people from New York and California are buying $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes without ever laying eyes on them. This person has never seen anything like this in their entire life. If we're actually seeing, and I don't know about this yet, but if we're seeing what you and I suspected, which is people fleeing these leftist cities for the countryside for safety, which would be the norm. Everyone who has the money to do so does it, and everyone who doesn't is screwed. Can't I make the argument that's actually good for how divided we are as a nation? If the leftist cities are going to empty, get a little taste of the countryside and why people keep guns by their beds every now and then the leftist cities eventually wake up or elect a Republican mayor who will bring some law and order. Can I argue in the end it'll take some time and some people are going to die, but that's better for the country?
Yeah, I mean, it is better for the sake of the country. It's not better because a lot of these folks are still going to be voting the same way, still holding the same politics, and they're bringing their destructive politics to red states now. That's definitely a negative, and frankly, as we go forward in the movie, that's going to present some problems. Now, I think the best case scenario is if you have people who feel like, you know, they feel like they're fish out of water in New York and New Jersey politically, and they want to go to Georgia or Texas or Florida or something, Arizona, and feel like, yes, I'm with my own people politically. I think that's to be encouraged, and that's great. And my sister sold her home here in Florida the first day. I think within an hour for more than the asking price. So it's definitely happening. I just hope everybody doesn't flee, because if everybody flees, then we have the same problems in free states as you do in blue states.
But isn't that the problem, Dave? Everyone is going to flee. Everyone who can afford it, everyone who has the money in New York City's gone, which leaves the poor law-abiding people there who don't have any money totally at the mercy of the scumbags. Isn't that the problem? We're making everything in general worse. I mean, if you had $5 and $8 grand to blow, I'd go buy something out there right now just to get away if I lived in one of these dumps.
For sure. No, we can't blame the people for it. And I'm really not sure what you can do. I mean, we do have free movement of people here in the United States, between states. People are encouraged to do that. I mean, there's been a steady stream of people leaving California and going to Texas, for example. I know it's happening. I hear stories every single day, even some famous people who are going. Unfortunately, we, you know, in some of these free states, like, you know, you and I live, we can't check your voting records at the door. So we're just going to have to hope and pray that a lot of these people coming will, you know, will vote better in the future.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for that. Dave Reboy, thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Happy birthday.
Thanks, bud. All right. We've got more. Hang on. It is important that we, you and I, come together often and we pay homage to things. We honor great days, great men, people who built this country. It's a way of reminding us who we are, isn't it? And first of all, let's just acknowledge this is the greatest day in the history of the United States of America. One major example of that is this. See that? That's the Americans landing on the moon first, baby. When we were in a space race with the dirtball commie scum, and they were doing everything trying to get there, and we made it first because America is the best. But really, in all seriousness, that's not what today's about. Do you know what today's really about? This is what it's about. Me. Because today is my birthday. July 20th, 1981, I came into this world, and 39 years later, I get to bless you every single night. I'll see you tomorrow.